Good afternoon, everyone. This is NAS Duties, one of the Commissioners of Student Election Commission of IIT Madras. I shall be moderating today's Soapbox for the post of Academic Affairs Secretary, along with my co-commissioners Meher Chawla and Saket Saurabh. And our candidate is Mr. T.B. Ramkamal. I'll now explain the format of the Soapbox. First, we will begin with the candidate's presentation, which will last for 7 minutes. There will be no cross-questioning as it's a unanimous candidate. A sincere request to the general audience, please don't hoot or disturb him while he is presenting. We look forward to a very constructive and meaningful discussion. So we'll begin with Ramkamal's presentation now. Over to you.
Am I audible? Yeah, okay. Hello, my name is Ramkamal. I'm a fourth year dual degree student from the Department of Electrical Engineering, contesting for the post of Academic Affairs Secretary. So I'll start with the presentation now. So firstly, I'd like to, for the GSB members over here, I'd like to just quickly run through, what is the duties of NAS, because that's something that not many people are aware of. So as you can see in this slide, I have mentioned kind of what are the different things that comes under the purview of NAS. And I think that's something that GSB members should know so that they have context for whatever comes after this. So at the top left, we have the different boards of the institute. The first thing is Board of Academic Courses, second is Board of Students, third is Board of Placements, and these are the three things I'm a standing member of. And there are other committees like the Disciplinary Welfare Committee, Prizes and Awards Committee, Library Advisory Committee, Timetable Committee, and so on. I am also one of the 3 student members of the Senate. And as you can see, I also liaison with the admin of different admin sections. We have the library, the computer center, and the workshop comes under me. And I also have to deal with the academic section on a day-to-day basis for taking administrative decisions and helping them in taking calls. I also bring it to their notice student issues and so on. And the teams that come under me are the CDC and the respective clubs. And we also have the placement and internship teams, which we are revamping this year as per the new rulebook that we passed on. So the programs under me are something that not many people are familiar with. So the BTech program, the dual degree, MA, MTech, MSc, MBA, all these are the programs that comes under me. I have roughly around say 4.5k or to 5k people in my electorate who will be voting for me in this election. So my vision for this election is basically that first thing, I want to give students the right tools to enhance their career growth in the institute. Second is that one of the main duties is guiding placements and internships. So we have increased batch numbers for placements this year, and I intend to keep up record numbers this year. So and this is something we are looking into this year, which is we want to cater to research opportunities much better than earlier. So the third thing is something that has not been tackled in a long time because of the pandemic and inefficiencies of the process and so on. So I kind of want to bring in digital changes to the academic section and help them tackle issues that we've had with workflow and mailing and so on. That is one thing I want to do using digital infrastructure solutions that I will be proposing. So my first point is that I will be opening internships for all taught programs, so that from the next year, HS students as well as MSc students will be allowed to appear for the internship drive. So the next thing will be I will be instituting a university and institutional relations team. So it's a new team in my sphere that will be basically helping better the visibility of the existing opportunities and bring in new opportunities to the students as far as research opportunities go. And this might be in forms of campus placements, internships, and as well as other semester exchange opportunities and other projects and so on. So one more thing is that this is something I wanted to start last year, but we couldn't do it exactly. So last year we tried a placement drive for specially challenged people in our institute. But since the number of people remaining were very low, we couldn't really convert companies. So we are going to try to collaborate with other IITs, especially which belong to the AIPC committee. Which belong to AIPC, and kind of make a collaborative drive in January. So there's one other thing that we are working on, which is kind of called the non-academic transcript. So it's a ledger that every student will be able to view, which will have the details of all their non-academic activities pursued by them during the campus life. this can be used as just a memorable as well as different, been a good way to keep track of, which students are lacking behind in courses, and there's not been a central drive from the academic section to, help them clear their backlogs. So because of that, this is something I want to do preferably in the next few weeks to kind of help the students graduate on time this year as well as in the following year. So in the next one semester or in the next few weeks as applicable, I kind of want to remove, kind of help students finish off all the remaining coursework so that they can graduate on time. So one more thing I'm doing is that currently workflow is kind of inefficient in the sense that a lot of things that we would like ideally like automated are not on the platform currently. The main reason is that operating on workflow is like doing an open heart surgery. It is a lot of vital data flowing through it. So we are kind of working on creating a supplementary portal that will house the new features, and the data from that will be fed onto the main workflow platform. So and then we are also bringing back kind of a hybrid system to propose minors from each department and pursue them as per our will. So right now it's a very rigid system where there's a fixed set of minors. I would like to make it a little more flexible and as well as friendly for the administrator and academic section to process it peacefully. So one more thing I wanted to work on is the Sati Academic Mentorship Program. So right now we have a freshie immersion program from the Sati team, which helps them, with very basic doubts like, which mess to register, how to use which roles in institute lead, what are the different departments, where are they. So basic doubts are handled by them. But I want a more specialized team to be existing to kind of help the students through their academic endeavors in the institute. So next thing is, as I mentioned earlier, I am a part of the library advisory committee, and I liaison with the library quite a bit. So I kind of want to revamp the services provided by them, kind of by interacting with them on a much closer level with the help of legislators and so on. So we'll be bringing things that are more relevant, like e-newspapers, e-magazines, and to help meet the demand of the institute people. So one more thing is, we don't have professional courses in the institute like Excel or web development and so on. So we will be offering them. We will be getting licenses to help students access these courses. So the next thing is, we have a behavioral insights club. So this is a new club that we're setting up to help further the cause of behavioral sciences in the institute. So this is something I wanted to show basically to kind of bring all my initiatives together and show kind of what it is I'm going towards. So as I told, BTech and dual degree students are part of my electorate and they form a large portion, and they are the ones in my electorate that stay here for the maximum amount of time. So it is better to pilot all my initiatives with them. So if you look at the life, the cycle of a UG student in the institute, if you look at the cycle of a UG student in the institute, he goes through the Sati Freshie program. He will then get academic mentorship. He will be able to work in the clubs to enhance his skills. Then the internships and placements, industrial or research, will be handled by the different teams. So the new team.
Sorry to interrupt. You'll have to wind up within 1 minute.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so this is something I wanted to show. So the Sati academic mentorship is something I'm trying newly. The UIR team, as I showed earlier, is something I'm trying newly, and I'm trying to add a few more clubs to make this more wholesome. So these are my credentials that over the past 3-4 years that I've worked on. I have been a part of Shastra Saran as well as the placement team for 3 years, and I think this gives me enough exposure to understand the different dynamics of the institute and help the spear forward. Yes, thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Now we'll move on to the questions with Executive Council. The Executive Council members are come in the front.
Bro. Just sit here. Light.
Hello. So you mentioned about this inclusive placement, so I want to do a pan-IIT placement drive. So what do you think is the procedure to do something like that?
So this is something that I want to propose firstly through the All India Placement Committee. So right now we have 23 IITs comprising of that, of which 10 are Group 1 and 13 are Group 2. So we have 2 members from our institute who are the placement advisor as well as the internship advisor who are part of those committees. So when the next meet happens sometime, in the next 3-4 months, I will have one of them propose this in that committee, and based on whatever comes as the outcome, we will proceed. So there are few ways I see this going forward. So the proof of concept for this is that we have the lower IITs currently doing a pooled IIT placement drive. So they work to, like, the lower IITs that don't have traction to get enough companies work together to form a common selection program. So like that we can institute a separate drive for all the IITs together, hosted by one IIT each year. There might be one major issue in this, which is the sensitivity of data, in which case we might be having to loop in some Ministry of Welfare and competent authorities to kind of help in the sensitizing the different institutes about the data.
Okay, so usually such an initiative takes about a year or two to go ahead, right? So in that span, what do you plan on doing for these students?
How exactly is the timeline? What do you mean by it'll take a year or two to go and
So usually, if anything, you propose the AAPC for them to form a committee, evaluate it, come back to you. Maybe it's not possible to do it in this upcoming January, right, 2023. Maybe it takes 2024 January to do this. So what are you going to do for 2023 January in case it doesn't happen?
So AIPC is capable of taking decisions at a pan IIT level. We can start off a pilot with 2-3 different IITs outside the framework.
Okay, good. And the next thing is the non-academic transcript. So it is heavily dependent on people giving you data and verifying the legitimacy of the data, even though let's say you are able to build a backend server for all of it, right? So how do you plan on channelizing data and how do you plan on getting it? Because we seem to struggle quite a bit with all the people giving us data just for resume verification. So yeah, how will you go about that?
Yeah, so basically I am providing 2 incentives here for the different secretaries to channelize the data to me. Firstly, it is something they already make as a list, to give for resume verification. Secondly, it also helps in their initiatives of, creating certificates for their different events, as well as, for, let's say, for culturals, they will make certificates for LitSoc and TechSoc for the technical sphere and so on. So they also have that added incentive that if they can provide me the data, they can make some initiatives of their own also done. So by helping me, they're also helping themselves. That is why I'm confident that this will go through.
Okay. And who will maintain the security of this data? Because it seems to have quite a bit of sensitive information that shouldn't be tampered with.
So right now the placement team and the placement office, which consists of a few staff that are employed by the institute directly. So these are the people who are currently maintaining the data of student resumes as well as different sensitive data regarding companies and contacts and so on. So they already have a good amount of sensitive data that they are safeguarding at the current instant. So and with respect to students, their data of achievement is something we already have in the form of resumes. This is an added step for that, and I don't think there will be any specific requirements because we already have such data and we are safeguarding at the moment. So there's nothing new we're getting from the other teams that we don't have already. So I'm confident we can safeguard this data.
Okay, now coming to this internships for all DART programs, you know that currently in the placement process, the HS program and the MSc program are the ones that have poor placement percentages, right? So it is likely that it will continue in the internship process as well. So how do you plan on tackling the both of this?
So firstly, to start off, this is not a step, this is the first step towards, supply and demand is a two-side problem. So first we have to let the students come into the process, and only then we can start pitching it to companies and then start by closing the gap. So right now, main reason for opening the the process for HS students is because management consulting firms that come for the placement process and have recruited them in good numbers last year are also coming for the internship process. So in such a scenario, if they do sit for internships, they will get a few number of offers. And HS is not dependent on us for internships and placements. They also have their own drive. So because of that, this is an added initiative to help them out, and it's still optional for them to register. It's not like everyone has to register.
So the department drive that you mentioned, right, that happens for the HS department. So they have come to us, asked us to be included in the institute drive because their department drive is not as effective. So they will, in effect, they will be dependent on this institute drive to drive things forward. So do you think the people who are working for the HS internship drive should also be working for this?
So the HS, if you are not aware, they have a placement team as well as an internship team inside them.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, so the thing is, they also are working on something called the pre-placement intern drive, and they are experimenting quite a bit over there. So that internship team can handle this as well and then see where it goes. And the thing is, they will be working full time just for their own department. So it is up to them to bring up in good initiatives to help them their department out.
So the problem with most department independent drives is that they don't have enough people. Same problem as PWDs, right? They don't have enough people for companies for them to sustain and come in. So yeah, that issue will in turn propagate.
Yeah. So that is something that is inherent with the nature of their program. We are an engineering institute and they are a humanities sciences program, and a good amount of them do not go for placements. Only in the recent few years the number has been growing, and we will find out ways to combat that by recently as well. One such initiative towards that we will be working on is that the HS student wanted more ways for them to get equipped with technical skills so that they can help themselves. So even if we can't directly bring in companies that are relevant to them, we can still equip them to handle the process that we have already.
And now coming to this easing up of pent up academic load. So what are the factors are you going to consider to figure out people who need help with respect to easing up of academic load?
So I can't exactly disclose the details here because some of them is confidential, but I can give a broad idea of what I'm going towards in this point. So if you look at the batches that need help mainly, which the thing is we need a priori data with people so that we can compare it with the online semesters to kind of see what has changed in the online scenario. So mainly this program will be targeted towards 17 duals as well as 18 and 19 batch students who have been in the institute for about a semester or at least a semester in total. So we will be looking at things like the number of credits completed on an average in an online semester, and the drop in CGPA and the average CGPA in each of the online semesters. So these are the three different things. I cannot reveal the exact data here because it's confidential, but these are the three things I'll be working with for getting the list.
Okay, so let's say you identify them. How are you going to go about and make sure that they complete all their academic backlog?
So that is again, so I think the first step is that currently we are working on compiling the data. So I'll be meeting with the Dean of Academic Courses in the next week, in the early next week, to kind of formalize the parameters that I worked upon. So once we identify the list of people that we think we can go forward, we'll have to again bucket the people into different categories. So some people might have, let's say, who want to graduate very early in this year, but we have to bucket in different categories, right? So for the 17 batch who are graduating now, we'll have to come up with very extreme measures to help them graduate. Maybe for different courses we might have to keep exams based on just quiz one syllabus. Again, it's very subjective because first thing is we want them to graduate. For 18 batch, we don't have to be 18 or 19 batches who are graduating later. We don't have to be that harsh on the restrictions. We can slowly keep their exams in the next semester or so, and then we can help them clear the backlogs.
Okay, cool. And you've mentioned about minors and IEEEs and whatnot, right? So what is the procedure to introduce an IEEE or a minor?
Which one should I start with?
Start with IEEE.
IEEE, okay. So firstly for IEEE, the thing is, since it's an interdisciplinary dual degree, it does not necessarily come under any department. So we need a coordinator, I don't know the exact term, but we need a coordinator to take up the initiative and form a committee below him, and then kind of do research on the thing, find out which courses to take from which department, formulate the structure, and then present it in the BAC and then take it to the Senate. So it's a very long drawn process with I don't know the exact intricacies, but the main problem with introducing IEEE is the first step of initiating and finding a person to drive it. After that, I think we'll go through in a year or so.
Most IEEEs require forming of new courses.
Yeah.
So do you know the procedure how to form a new course?
So forming new courses, the thing is, so there's two parts to it. One is convincing a department to form a course, and the thing is, second step is the formalities that come after that. So to convince the departments, the thing is, right now the administration as well as our director, he is of the opinion that we need more financial related courses in the institute to promote that culture for various internships, placement courses, as well as to keep up with the general trend of finance in the country. So the first step is to he will be helping the first step of convincing this department that they require, and 4 courses will be formed and proposed in the department consultative committee, and from that, once they are approved, go to the BSc and then Senate to be approved.
Good. Now some situational based questions for you. So let's say you just came out of the DWC. A bunch of folks have been decided that they're found guilty and they'll be getting your academic disco, right? There's a punishment that goes with it. So one of the folks has found out that he is going to get punished, and he comes to you saying that I have very disturbed mental health for the last 2 to 3 months, and he said I have no choice but to resort to self-harm if this goes through, right? Self-harm. I don't want to use the word, but so how will you go about this?
So the DWC has 2 parts. So it's called the disciplinary as well as welfare committee. So it has ironclad rules on what are the things that what are the graded punishments the candidate will get. But the committee also has to keep in mind the welfare of the student. So because ultimately we do want them to get better life eventually. So the 2 parts is problem. One is what can we do academically. So we can firstly reevaluate his case and see whether it was actually the grade of punishment can be reduced to ease his cause. Secondly, we actually have to get the student help because this is a serious matter that cannot be taken up just by the academic secretary. There are other stakeholders in this process who will have to be able to help him much better than a student secretary. We have the different teams under the student general secretary like Sati Mitra. We also have the wellness center who is outside of all the different centers. We have to make sure, personally, if that situation does arise, firstly I have to make sure that he is feeling safe with respect to his opinions being valued. Secondly, I'll take him to get the help does he need, and we'll also go through the DWC again and see if something can be changed with respect to his punishment.
Okay, cool. Yeah, the next question is that every year there is a bunch of folks, right, who's on the borderline of 8 CGPA, slightly lower than that, who will come to various people, especially the academic affairs secretary, and say that, hey, why can't the cutoff for converting to a dual degree be reduced, right? And now we don't offer traditional dual degree admissions as well. Everything is a BTech admission, barring a very few cases. So, what is your opinion on that?
Opinion as in what can
on
be
the 8 cutoff for converting to dual degree?
So the thing is, the 8 cutoff, it has been in place based on certain factors, like the number 8 assets. The thing is, if a student converts from a BTech to a dual degree, the department needs to deem him valuable enough so that they can spend that extra effort into, so that they can get a good research paper or a project out of him. So that is the intention behind the CGPA cutoff, and the rule is there in place. But I am not entirely sure. Please help me out here if I'm wrong. The thing is, this dual degree accreditation is given if it's a native dual degree accreditation. It is entirely in the department's hands, in the sense that let's say a student is right now in chemical engineering with some let's take another case as well. Like a student is with a 9-point CGPA in his later semesters in the BTech program, and he wants to convert to a dual degree. So it is in the hands of his department to enable him to take a dual degree or not. And the thing is, we do have formal cutoffs for the procedure. So in this case, as well as the case we have mentioned wherein the student has slightly lower cutoff, the department and the HOD can take an executive decision to give him a dual degree in case of extreme cases.
So ever since the dual degree program was removed from the JOSA documents, right, it's completely in the hands of the department to choose whether they can give it or not. Until the time it was in JOSA documents, the rules were strict. You cannot play around with anything. Since it is removed from the JOSA documents, you can, but still there is no formal procedure for any student to apply for an exemption. It is still treated as 8.
Okay, so right now you're saying there is no formal procedure to are students aware that exceptions can be done, or is that something that in your tenure?
One, they don't know. People who approach me, I said, you can, why don't you have a chat with your faculty advisor or the HOD? That is the standard reply I give them.
Okay, then in this case, since the solution is clear that it is kind of flexible, we can take the help of branch counselors who are more in, who are, department legislators, sorry for the wrong term. So we can take the help of department legislators to kind of, propagate the information in the department and kind of, reach out to students before they reach out to them that if they want to convert for dual degrees and so on.
Cool. And my final question. So every year in the internship process, we kind of see that the number of companies that take part is quite lower than what we do for the placement process. And one of the reasons for that is predominantly from my belief that the PG teams are not as willing to share their company calling sheet to the internship process, right? So what do you think you as an AS in collaboration with the RAS can do to help that?
So firstly, let me just restate the question so I don't want to make any false claim. So firstly, you're saying that the PG teams of the placement team until this point have been having contacts of different companies, core companies mostly, that could potentially come for internships, but they refuse to share the details of the HR so that we are not able to contact.
Not in all cases, but in most cases.
Okay, that's a general assumption that
it's a trend.
Yeah, okay, that's the trend you have to go with. Okay, so the thing is, the relationship that these companies have with the PG students, the PG students want to kind of have good relationship with the companies and handle them entirely so that they'll be able to deal with them for placements easier and to stop any harm that may befall of mishandling of the company by any other team, because as a placement team member you try to do what is best for your department. That is entirely understandable. So the next part to this is basically that whether they can handle these companies for internships. But because of the HTRA policy, we know that MS and PhD students cannot sit for internships through an official process. There are other exceptions in place, but right now at least they cannot sit for the intern, we cannot facilitate an official internship process for them. So with the help of the RAS, what we can do is, since we are merging the teams and since we'll possibly be merging both the placement and internship teams, we can have one POC for the company from the PG side as well as one from the UG side, and the RAS can help, at least for the first year, next year, like we need to establish trust between the teams. At least for the first year, the RAS or the PG placement head, whoever is involved, can be looped in the process just to facilitate the handover for the different things. And if the process goes smoothly once, I think the trust will be built, and over time we will not have issues with respect to company outreach.
So, just an extension to this question. So, in general, how do you see about building harmony and peace within the team of the different stakeholders, right? Because you look at the placement and internship teams right now as it is being proposed, there are different departments, different degrees, different stakeholders out there, and the system by design is that individual pieces will look after their own pieces, whereas the top level positions will have to look after the entire thing, right? So how do you think you can bring about harmony within this structure?
So the current placement team structure, I think at least this year we managed to have a good amount of harmony between the teams. So if you look, so the proof of concept, if you see for that, is the IPR team that I was heading last year. So it is a team that handles non-core companies exclusively almost, but we are trying our level best to open companies for all the departments. And the fact that there is a team of undergraduates trying their level best to open for all the postgraduate students without any bias or anything is, I believe, was a good proof of concept for them to take the next level of trust next year. But again, there are more problems with this. So if you look at the next slide, we have core companies wherein the PG departments want to try their level best to increase offers for their own department. So in this case, it is up to the UG and PG teams to build a good rapport even before we get to the odd semester, wherein most of the placement process takes place. So we have, as the governing council that we are proposing next year, we have more eyes on the entire process, and it is up to us more than make sure the process is going right. We need to make sure that the harmony is kind of built before we go into the process, rather than there are being doubts with respect to the team members of their integrity, and then issues coming later on. It's better to start building the trust now with processes and initiatives rather than going chasing it after later, after issues arise.
The floor is now open to the general student body. If any of you would like to ask any questions, you may please ask. Ensure that your question is short, concise, and to the point.
You mentioned in the non-academic transcript point when you're explaining that most of these data you already have within resume verification. So apart from speeding up the process for resume verification, does this initiative have any other advantages?
Okay, thank you for asking that question. This has one upside that has not been mentioned by any other feasibility report of other candidates, I believe. So this initiative, more than the placement team, it is helping many of the deans and advisors that are present right now. Let me just give an example as to explain what is the case. So I tell one major factor that is clawing away at the time of our deans and advisors single-handedly. So the top IIMs of our country, when they have their placement process, they have a constraint that students who are sitting for the process must get their resumes verified with the help of their parent institutes of where they got the points from. Let's say an IITM alum goes to IIM Ahmedabad and then sits for placements. So when he sits over there, let's say he has a POR saying he was the placement core of the mechanical department. So the thing is, apart from getting that point verified, he will also have certain claims. He will claim that certain percentage got placed that year, and there was some year-on-year offers and increase, and then some new companies came and so on. So those claims have to be verified by the parent institute and specifically a professor or a competent authority in the institute. So what happens right now is that a person from an IIM sends a mail to his the successive course or the advisor or any decentralized authority. There's no standard method that they go for. They kind of shoot the arrow in the direction, and it kind of gets directed towards the respective advisor, and they have to consult with the secretary in charge and get back to the mail saying this is approved. And the thing is, there will be an IIM email ID in that thread to which the response will go, and then they will use it as proof. So one thing we are proposing with this current portal, is this part clear to you? Like till this point, are you able to follow? Yeah, okay. So after this part, what we're trying to do is, in this portal, we have the database of all the students and the PORs, their achievements and so on. After that part is uploaded, what happens next is that we give alumni access to their own accounts. So they can log in, see their own achievements. So the next part of this is they'll need individual points against this. So one, again, this may not be the final implementation, but this definitely solves the problem. Like this may not be the final version, we may come up with a better solution, or there might be some small hiccups that we might have to go through. So one way to solve this issue is that let's say you have the point of a mechanical engineering department code. You pick that point, you write a description against it, and you raise a ticket saying, I want proof of this sent to this particular email ID. You put, let's say, IAMA proofs at CV proofs at IAMA dot something will come. You put that email ID when you're raising the ticket. So that ticket will go to the concerned secretary, who can approve or send it back to you. It's like resume verification at this point. So they can approve or send it back to you, and if they approve it, it will go to the concerned advisor, who can approve it. It's just a click of a button for them. And the system will automatically generate a mail from a competent IIT email ID, which we will advertise to all the IIM saying that it's an official method. So that mail will be sent to that corresponding IIM which they mentioned, with the data of the POR as well as the relevant proofs. So this is one of the structures I am looking at as a final solution. And this thing may not be of much use to the placement team, but in the long run, it is very much a need of the hour, because different, like the dean of students, the dean of academic courses, and the different cultural advisor and co-curricular advisor and so on, a lot of time of their year in their POR, so to say, goes in verifying these proofs when it comes to the admission seasons. So this is something that will solve that entirely. So this is a big plus for those people, and this is like 50% of why you are pushing this point in through.
Anyone else would like to ask?
While you're onboarding the student, while you're onboarding the students onto the internship or the placement portal, you'll be requiring some details about the students from various programs from the academic section. So historically, there has been some sort of delays in getting those information. So what is your plan to channel this flow of information from the academic section to the placement or the internship office?
Delays as in what form?
As in, say, the timelines makes you that you want this information around the 15th of July, and we reach out to the academic section requiring this information, but the information reaching us will take a lot of more time.
So yeah, for the same thing, I wanted some information in the academic section. So the best way to deal, so the thing is, so the DR was the email that you send a mail to, it is handled by multiple people. So the issue becomes for them is that once they get a mail from a random entity such as the placement team, it's not something that's very relevant to them. So they have the issue of sending it across to people, seeing who's relevant to it, and then someone taking the effort of putting it across, because they don't know the time sensitivity of it. The best way to deal with this is to walk in that in person, tell them, reply this email, they'll reply immediately. This is a working concept, it's been done in the past. Only due to the pandemic, we couldn't do it in the last 2 years.
Do we have any questions from the audience?
Yeah, can I ask a question? Yeah, so you had mentioned about creating new IEEE courses or BTech courses, right? So there are some existing courses such as BTech project, creative engineering one, and then credits you get through YRF. See, all these things are basically BTech research courses, right?
Yeah.
So now there is no specific rule book as to how you can credit those. Now suppose through BTech project I can credit 27 credits.
Yeah.
Through creative engineering 18 more. YRF is another 18 more. So if you add up 63, and all of these are under BTech research, right? So what there is no specific rule book as to how I am supposed to credit those, and whether I can credit this as well as this. You get my point, right?
Yeah.
So what is the exact procedure for the crediting one, and then what if suppose I credit one BTech project, that is for 27 credits. So can I do one more? Suppose I want to do YRF also. So can I do 18 more in the same domain?
So what are the 3 different entities you talked about? Creative engineering project,
there is a
BTech project, as well as the third one, right?
Yeah, YRF.
So as far as I'm aware, there is a limit on the number of credits you are supposed to be able to do for the creating engineering project as well as BTech project together. Yeah, and the thing is, so the reason why this was introduced in the curriculum itself was to promote a good amount of research among the BTech students. So except for YRF, which is a very new thing, where there is no rules to govern it. Okay, like it's still. So we had a recent issue of YRF with respect, whether credits should be given or monetary compensation should be given to students. So YRF is still in the grey area with respect, the thing is, all these rules are governed by the Senate, and they are a body that meets twice a semester, and there's a lot of agenda going on over there. So to get this formally approved by someone to the Senate takes a lot of effort, and only since this year YRF is somewhat getting to an ending point with respect to its structure, right, we have to look at it separately. So for at least for the BTech as well as creating engineering project, I've heard that both can be credited together.
Okay, so like, is there a rule book that is set in place as to how one?
So at this point, there is no rule book that is accessible to the students, but it is the job of any HOD of that corresponding department HOD. It's his job to clarify these things. But I think with next year, one initiative that we should do with the help of branch counselors is that at a department level, we need to make kind of a, not necessarily a rule book, but at least some place where the data information is available with respect to these FAQ questions, frequently questions that are asked among students, like course categories as well as these project crediting. So these are recurring. So thing is, one more thing. Sorry to divert. But yeah, the thing is, for each department, there is one prof who is in charge of this ID project, the UGRP project. So they were also aware of the details of this, this project, how it can be credited. So HOD is the ultimate authority. There's one more person who should be knowing about this stuff. But the exact rules I'm not sure. Like you said rightly, there is no place where this is officially recorded, I think, because but that is accessible to the students. The place where this will be recorded is in the minute of some Senate, which we don't have access to. But at a department level, there should be some way to get that information and disperse it to students. So that is something we can work on next year.
Okay, thank you.
Now we will have a question from, we'll come back. We'll have a question from one of our online audience. Our Deputy Head Manohna will say the question now.
It's from Shiva Subramaniam. Is he here? Okay. His question is, how feasible is the introduction of IDDD financial engineering as mentioned in your manifesto? Have you talked to the relevant stakeholders?
So the thing is, financial engineering is one way to bucket it. So the thing is, so I'll tell you the motivation behind this thing, okay? Because starting IEEE, I also mentioned in my feasibility report, is kind of a long and cumbersome process. So there are some initiatives that I could want to take, but it has to be supported by the administration to see the end result. So why IEEE financial engineering is something specifically I mentioned is that in the last Senate meeting, as well as with the meetings with the last Executive Council members, Kamakati sir has expressed his concerns with respect to the number of financial companies that come to the campus and with respect to the number of courses we have in the institute. So since it is something that is driven at a director level, this will percolate much faster than other things. And why I have proposed financial engineering as a solution to that is that financial engineering is a very well recognized course across the different US as well as Europe, the different states and countries over there. And the thing being, if it is introduced, I think it will rival data science in terms of the participation that it sees, unlike the other IEEEs that we have right now. So it will be very sought after, it will have a good set of courses, and I think it's very feasible because it's been driven by the director, and that is the answer I would like to give to this question.
Now the audience can ask questions.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
So, the Global Engagement Council is currently working on, our global internship program. How much involvement do you expect you'll have in this? Where does your portfolio end, and where the JSA, workload start?
Okay. So it's a good question. So I will give a parallel with respect to the ESL intern fair that summer intern fair that happened concluded last week. So as far as I'm concerned, the institute internship and placement process, we have a very strict boundary with respect, which companies we allow on the portal and what we do. So the way I see it, at least, the summer intern fair that took place with respect to ESL a few weeks back, and the global internship program that you guys are proposing are kind of experimental programs with respect to the results. So for ESL, the program that they had, right, the numbers basically say that 50% of the offers never come through. So these are very low level programs. It's a very experimental program that has a lot of flaws in it. So the global internship program being proposed right now, the fees, I've heard about the program, and the basic idea is that you guys will go pitch the internship concept to MOU universities, startups teams over there, and which will be similar to our ESL. So if it's kind of similar in competency, the result is right over there. So the thing is, we will kind of facilitate our portal as an end result. We will let our students appear in your process, and once it is over, we'll get the results, and the ones who get an internship and we are sure will go through, we'll remove from our process and we'll upload the statistics on our portal. The fees we can talk about later. Like, we'll get some internship fees, and for the students who do get an offer through your portal or use the services, we'll give the fee to the corresponding team, and you can take it over from there.
Now one of our commissioners, particularly our chief commissioner, will ask you a question.
So since the standing committees have not been placed since last 2 years, so as an executive council member, if you are elected, how would you like to make sure that you are accountable to the GSB as well as SLC in terms of effectively getting your rule books and other reports which the executive council member is mandated to submit in the SLC, scrutinized as well as regulated? So how would you ensure that you are accountable to the SLC?
So one just quick follow. So this year, do you think there's a good chance the standing committees will be back, because we'll have much bigger strength in the SLC?
Yes.
So that in that case we'll go the existing procedure. But in case that is not.
In case if it's not there.
Okay. In case the committees cannot.
Yeah, because we are on the boundary, we are not sure if we have a full-time SLC or not.
Correct. So the thing is, as a secretary, in general, let's say, even with respect to the existence of standing committees, we don't have graded punishments as to what we give to a secretary back once they're under the tenure. Have they underperformed? Have they done very well? There is no graded punishments or incentives for them to actually work towards it. So as far as I see it, the reports are just documents and they are just taken forward. I think more than thinking about this, the secretaries have to themselves start stepping up and then do the process by themselves. And the SLC can kind of convene every once now and then, and the secretaries can just come up with their own reports directly present to the SLC without a standing committee assessing them.
Okay. Tell me what all reports and their timelines you'll have to submit in SLC, plus what is the quorum needed to get them passed, and tell me about the budget as well. What is the quorum required for budget as well as the passing majority of that budget?
No, could you start again? I'm sorry.
Tell me what all reports you have to submit in
reports.
SLC.
Reports as in the midterm reports, or what kind of reports?
The committee reports as well as which you have to submit to the SLC, plus their timelines and the quorum which is required to pass those reports in the SLC, and what is the quorum required for budget and the majority which is required to pass them.
Okay. So SLC has bills, resolutions and constitutional amendments as the fundamental concept. So I'll finish this and get to your exact question. So for constitutional amendments, you need more than 50% of the SLC maximum strength to be over there, and a 2/3 majority to pass it. For anything else, there needs to be a simple majority to pass the proposal through. So for reports, I believe I'm not wrong, there is a midterm review that I have to submit somewhere around December or January, and the standing committee report that will come later, that is made by the standing committee. So I think that those are the broad timelines. And for the budget, so typically it has to be introduced around the start of the tenure, at least in the mid of the tenure, and I think the simple majority is enough to pass it through.
So for budget you need 2/3 majority.
Okay.
But for any other legislation,
okay,
as you said, it's simple majority. Yeah, fair enough.
Thank you.
We'll take a question from the audience now.
I want your opinion on something. Do you think it's fair that HS kids are allowed to sit in the same profiles in companies as BTechs and duals, given that BTechs and duals come from JE and HS kids come from HSE, which is a completely different kind of entrance exam, and I'm sure most people would agree, definitely not as competitive. So do you think it's fair that they're allowed to sit for the same profiles like that?
As long as they stay in the same hostels, even eat in the same messes, it's fine.
Any more questions? If we don't have any questions, we will conclude the session. Thank you everyone for joining, and thank you Ramkamal for your presentation. Thank you.